Fear will always tell you to play it safe to protect the foundation. But sometimes God is waiting for you to realize that He isn't testing your perfection, He's testing your perspective. Today, we're breaking down the paralyzing trap of over-spiritualizing basic choices and why true dominion means understanding that whatever decision you make in faith, God is already in it. If you're hungry to walk in your God-given purpose, but the process feels slower or more hidden than you expected, you're not alone. This is the Jesse Wood Show, where we give voice to the real process behind God-designed purpose. I created this space for faith-driven builders like you to help you recognize the importance of the season that God has you in and what He's doing in you during it. Because what He builds in you matters just as much as what He builds through you. I'm Jesse Wood. Welcome to the podcast, and let's build together. You can't build a future of abundance if you're constantly forcing your mindset to live in a season of survival utility that you've already outgrown. In Luke chapter 19, the nobleman hands out the minas to his servants and gives a direct order to occupy or do business until I come. So that means to engage in business, to trade, to actively expand. What he didn't tell them to do was to live as cheaply as possible. He actually told them to just manage resources effectively to grow. For years, I'll give you an example that I'm living in right now. For years, my wife drove out of pure utility with her car. She's got a minivan. We got it during COVID, and it was actually, honestly, a whole thing from the Lord. It was a whole supernatural experience. She was driving a Chevy Suburban. It had almost 200,000 miles on it. Like, none of the features worked. None of the buttons worked. It was literally just to get from point A to point B. But we've got 5 kids. And so we needed that space when we had the kids. And then we were also doing a lot of real estate staging. And so we could take the back seats out and we would have a lot of space to throw stuff in there. And so we almost couldn't even imagine having a different type of vehicle. But my wife's in real estate as well, runs all over the place all the time. So she's putting a lot of miles on the van or on the Suburban, spending a lot in gas. So now it's COVID. We're actually running into it needing more repairs, coming up on state inspection. So I said, hey, let's just go to the dealer and look around. Well, turns out there's a Toyota Sienna minivan, and she really didn't want a minivan, but it had all black leather interior. It's a hybrid, and so good miles to the gallon. There's still good room in the back. You can fold the back seats down and get some good space in it. And what's crazy is that during COVID, it was hard to get a car. It was very hard to get a car. Chips weren't getting made. And so there wasn't a lot of options on car lots. And the only reason why this minivan was available, it's the only minivan on the entire lot. The only reason why it was available is because somebody else custom ordered it, then backed out at the last minute. So now here it was for us as an option to get. And by the end of it, she was like, I can't believe I'm spending this much money on a minivan. There was even like a $4,000 or $5,000 markup, market value adjustment, because of all the competition, how hard it was to get a car at that time. But it also made sense. It made so much sense. I told her, Toyota is one of the most reliable cars on the planet. You're no longer going to be spending repair bills. It's just going to be your monthly payment. And then tires, brakes, oil changes. And now the van's at 91,000 miles. That's literally all we've done the whole time. But it's coming up on like 100,000 mark, where you got to just invest into it quite a bit to get a lot more miles out of it with that 100,000 mile service. But so I'm thinking about that. We've got a lot of money that we're going to be investing in the car. It needs new tires. It just barely passed inspection. I had to put a windshield in it, but it needs tires, it needs brakes, it needs fuel service, transmission service, whatever else is on the 100,000 mile service list. But the second oldest son is graduating high school. The oldest already has his own car, drives himself around. And so our demand for maximum passenger capacity is shrinking. And so for my wife, the season of having to drive the minivan is expiring. Had it for 5 years now. And so this, I think this is it's a good metaphor for a major transition point for every entrepreneur, where you have to stop asking, what do I absolutely have to do to get by? And start asking, what represents the level of dominion I am building towards? So here we are. This past weekend, we've been going to different dealerships. We've gone to Toyota and we've gone to Lexus. Lexus and Toyota, obviously owned by the same company. I actually drive a Lexus. It's a 2016 hybrid CT200H. I actually bought it near the time my wife bought her van. I also was like, hey, I really like this hybrid vehicle idea. And I wanted a smaller car, but something I could fit my music gear into very easily. So mine's a little hatchback. But the problem is that these cars go so fast that we have to reserve them. We haven't even been able to really test drive one, which is crazy. But so we reserved a Grand Highlander at Toyota. And then yesterday we were at the Lexus dealership with essentially the same size car. It's got a third row seat, the TX, and they also have a hybrid version, but it's a little different because it's going to take premium gas. It's going to have lower miles per gallon, and we could trade the van in and get the Highlander, and the monthly payment would be like the exact same as what she pays right now. If we do the Lexus, it's not going to be the same. It's probably going to be about 150 to $200 more. So not a ton, but it is more. So there's an opportunity here to have fear in being heavily leveraged in your business, and that fear will always tell you to stay in the in the minivan mindset. But playing it safe out of fear is just burying your talent in a cloth of false humility. If we stay there too long, if we play safe and there's wisdom in that, not really playing safe, but when there is wisdom in being efficient, that's a real thing. But I'm talking about when God's trying to upgrade you, when He's trying to shift you. And there's a quote, it's unknown who this quote is from, but it says, fearing tracking backwards is the fastest way to stop moving forward. When God tells you to get what you want, He isn't giving you an escape from stewardship. He is testing whether you trust His presence more than you trust your own parameters. So, for context here in the scripture, if we look at the servant who buried his mina in the dirt, when the king asked why he hid the money, the servant replies in Luke 19:21, "I was afraid of you because you are a hard man." He viewed his master as a restrictive tyrant who was just waiting for him to make a mistake. He didn't understand the heart of the father. But here we are, my wife and I, yesterday, we went to Lexus, and what's actually crazy is they had one that was 1 year older, little over 8,000 miles on it, and about $5,000 cheaper than the brand new one. And I told her, I said, we saw it online yesterday, but we couldn't get there yesterday before they closed. I mean, on the day before. So I said, this is probably a 1 year lease. I can't go over 10,000 miles. We'll save like 5, 6 grand. We can go, we can go check it out. They've got it there. We can test drive it, all of that. Well, by the time we got there yesterday, the person at the dealer, they were texting me when I was sitting at church, and they said, actually, that used one already sold. It's like, man, I had to tell my wife. She was like, man, I was really excited about it. I wanted to look at it. So, well, let's just go anyway, see what's going on. So we ended up there anyway. We saw one, but we couldn't drive it because it was headed to another dealership. So we're just kind of looking at it, trying to decide. We end up reserving one of the ones in the color and all that she likes. We made a deposit to reserve it, just like we reserved the Grand Highlander. So what's going to happen is Toyota's going to get the Highlander and Lexus is going to get the Lexus in, and then we can test drive them both, and whichever one we don't go with, they'll refund our deposit. But you can't even test drive it. So we're having to put a deposit down just to even get a chance to test drive it. So we do that, leave the dealership, and we're driving home. And my wife says, I was just sitting here, and I really felt like God told me to just get what I want. just get what I want, which I love that because to a survival mode mindset, first of all, that's going to sound dangerous, but God is a father, a loving father. He's not a supervisor checking a spreadsheet or grading you on things. And so when you're working hard, you're being diligent, you're sowing your sweat equity, you're building faithfully and doing it all as of unto the Lord. Your heart is fully his. He delights in your desires, and he doesn't want you to view the marketplace as a wilderness of constant deprivation. He wants you to see it as a territory where your hard work reaps a harvest of freedom and dominion. So here's the thing my wife and I are talking about. If she wants the Lexus, we're actively working the business model to fund that lifestyle, her business and my business. Choosing the Lexus isn't greed. It's actually, it feels like an act of expectant faith. It's declaring that the harvest is coming, that's already come, and we refuse to let fear dictate our current reality. And something God taught me in my wilderness season when I was literally building from nothing. He was teaching me that you can't allow a single ounce of fear in your decision-making process. If you're acting in sonship, if you're letting God be father and you be a kid and the right identity, you can't allow any ounce of fear in your decision-making process. So here we are. We're just looking for the little tiny pieces of fear that might be in there, and we're just ripping them out. And Psalm 37:4 says, delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. God will never allow a broken outcome to veto a divine assignment. And when he promises to be with you in a choice, he is ensuring the builder, not just the building. So think back now in that parable to the servants before the king left for that distant country. He didn't give them an emotional guarantee that trading wouldn't involve risk, that there wouldn't be a struggle or even temporary loss. Maybe some people got down to close to nothing and they're already imagining, oh my gosh, I blew it. But he just handed them the money and left. Do business with this until I come. Leaves. They had to look at the resource objectively and decide what to do. Now, when my wife told me yesterday that she's like, I feel like God's telling me just to do what I want, it reminded me of when I was actually engaged with my first wife. And I had this weird season. I'm telling you, it was completely strange. You know, we're young, in love, we got engaged and couldn't not spend time with each other. You know how it is. It was like one day I noticed that for a few days or so, I had like zero emotion towards her. Wasn't negative, wasn't positive. It's just I was just looking at a human that I know, but it wasn't like, oh, I'm so excited to see you and all that. And it was really strange. So I asked the Lord, what is going on here? Like, what is this about? And he says, I'm trying to give you a grace. What I felt like the season was for was he was giving me a grace to be able to really make a decision on marrying my wife, my first wife. And all of my siblings have been married. They got kids at this point already. I'm the last one of 6 of us in our whole mixed family. I was late 20s or had crossed 25 and really wanted to be married, but wasn't sure.
Vision isn't permission to rush. It's an invitation to trust. Like Abraham, sometimes you're called to move without seeing the full destination. Everyone wants to build what they feel called to build. But calling often comes before visibility, like David in the field. When God gives you a vision, it's not so you can force it to happen. Like Joseph, there are seasons where the dream is clear, but the path is quiet. Before God builds something with you, he builds you, the builder. Like Moses in formation, and Nehemiah laying foundations that last. The Purpose-Driven Business Builder's Blueprint was created to help you recognize your season and build it right. Learn more at purposedrivenbuilder.com.
So God's giving me this grace to make a decision and to make the decision objectively. I'm like, okay, well, should I do it or should I not? Are you doing this because I shouldn't marry her? Or what's going on here? And what the Lord told me, he says, whatever decision you make, I will be with you in it. Literally what I felt him tell me. Whatever decision you make, I'll be with you in it. So based on that, we're engaged, we're planning the wedding, and I'm in love, wanting to be married, start a family finally. I chose to move forward. Within about 7 months of being married, we were pregnant with our daughter, and she came in October. But close to our 1-year anniversary, pregnant with my daughter, right, coming up to our 1-year anniversary, we have this crazy situation. She says that she wants to get a divorce, and has already met someone else, doesn't love me. But good news is that was a short kind of stint situation, but we ended up fighting for our marriage, restored it, went to counseling, ended up building a home together. Our daughter was born, and ended up getting new jobs, new place. It was like, okay, we got a whole new lease on life here now. It wasn't fast. It was a lot of effort. It was a lot of work, a lot of help from loved ones, friends, and family, a lot of support. But 2 years after that, we hit another rocky place, and fight through that again. Another year goes by, and we just weren't connecting. I think at that point there was just too much that had gone on. And she asked me if we wanted to separate. And I literally felt this burden lift from my shoulders. It was supernatural. We're driving the car, just picked up our daughter from preschool, coming home from work. She says, "Hey, I think we should separate. What do you think?" And I literally just felt this it was like a yoke, when you're married and you have this yoke together. I felt that lift, and God say that he was going to take care of her now. Literally felt that, heard God say that, and I said, okay. So we were almost married 4 years, and now we're separating, divorce, and that was rough and rocky too, and now we're trying to figure out split parenting and all of that. We're good friends now. Worked through so many things. She's remarried, has several kids. Of course, I'm remarried, and brought on 4 bonus boys. But that situation was terrible. It was devastating. It's nothing I ever wanted. Heartache. I feel like I'm starting over. Going through the divorce process, not being with my daughter every day. But God didn't lie to me in that season when I was engaged. He didn't say the path would be perfect. He just said he would be in it with me. And that divorce is the exact springboard that God used to push me out of my corporate job and into the wilderness that turned me into the entrepreneur that I am today. So without that shattering, I wouldn't have my book, wouldn't have my business, wouldn't have my current wife, my current life. So God ultimately restored my marriage by bringing me a true partner, someone completely aligned with my entrepreneurial space, a real estate agent who runs on the same frequency that I do. Whereas my ex-wife, she was opposite. We were like opposites attract until they attack. I'll never forget her hometown preacher that did our marriage counseling told us that. I'll never forget that phrase. But God took a choice that ended in wreckage and worked it for an unimaginable good. Romans 8:28 says that, and we know that in all things, God works for good. And we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him and who have been called according to his purpose. there is something to there's a difference between leveraging debt versus leveraging faith. Being leveraged in business is a temporary season of structural engineering, and you can't let the height of your current debt blind you to the horizon of your future wealth. In that parable, the servants who multiplied the minas had to take risks in the marketplace because you can't trade or build a business without leveraging the assets that you have. And the servant who kept things completely safe and balanced ended up stripped of everything that he possessed. My wife and I, we are currently working very hard. We are investing heavily, and we're definitely leveraging debt in our business. But the thing is, it feels exactly what we're supposed to be doing. But it does naturally invite an opportunity for fear and craziness. And if you're not careful, you can have this kind of situation start to spin you out. But there's something that the Lord told me when I was divorced, and one day I was in prayer, and I'm just talking to him about the life and a wife that I want to have, and he says, I want you to know that I do got your back, and I'm going to take you step by step to get you there. God directs our paths, right? The Bible says that. And so God's saying, I know how to get us there. Here's here's the deal though. If I gave you everything you're asking for right now, if just boom, magical, poof, even if it could happen, found a genie, said, I want it all now, instead of God building me into it. If it just all happened right now, he said, imagine all that. The weight of that would crush you. Like, just imagine hundreds of thousands of dollars going in and out of bank accounts on a monthly basis. Just imagine. You can't even imagine $100 right now. I was like, you're right. I'm pretty poor. My car was repossessed. I'm basically living on beef jerky given to me from my roommate, while also he's like, I also have to evict you because you're not paying for rent. Uh, so God's like, the weight of what you're asking for would completely crush you. And so the building process is out of protection. Sometimes delay is your destiny, or it's divine engineering. It's it's God being smart. And so as you build, I like to say that as you get through the wilderness and get into the promised land, you now open up to promised land problems. You're never going to earn your way or build your way out of problems. Not in kingdom, not walking in dominion, because you're just going to keep upgrading and upgrading and upgrading. Your problems are just going to get upgraded. They're going to be good problems to have. Like, man, that's a good problem. That means we're blessed if we got that problem, that kind of problem. And so I've stopped trying to figure out how to make my life easier, but instead make myself more firm in my faith and just better at problem solving and faster in how I think with partnership with the Lord. We're just really experienced partners now. Well, he's always been experienced. I'm a more experienced partner working with him. And so the fear doesn't even come in, and we just make a decision and we go for it because that's the next logical step when there's faith in the room and there's actual real strategy. Just like how Jesus had an accountant, and you can tell that he would pay for people's meals and things if they were at the crown. You can tell in conversations that that was the case, but then he could also pull a coin from a fish's mouth. Jesus was this incredible hybrid of both things. And so your problems just get bigger, but they're better problems. So as you do this thing right, the opportunity for fear is actually going to get even bigger as well. The opportunity for faith increases, the opportunity for fear increases. Like, man, I can't imagine there's this much debt or this much going on and whatever. but there's also this much coming in. There's this much harvest happening. There's more harvest than ever before. And if I said, give me $10, I'll give you 100, a lot of people could do that because a lot of people have $10. Now, if I started saying, give me 10,000, I'll give you 100,000. That'd be hard for people to do. Mostly because a lot of people don't have 10 grand just lying around, or maybe the credit to get 10 grand. And then that's also a bigger trust. If you don't know me, I'm like, give me $10,000 and in 7 days, I'll give you 100 grand. That's a lot harder thing for people to do. And during that 7-day waiting period, guess what? You're probably losing your mind. What did I just do? Did I make a huge mistake? So there's a huge opportunity for fear to come in as you're building, as you're growing. And the enemy wants you to look at that leverage and your past scars and wounds and places that you feel like you failed and say, we can't risk it. We need to stay small. We need to protect the downside. We need to wrap it in a cloth and bury it. But true stewardship means that you're knowing that you aren't working for a temporary paycheck, but you're building a machine that's producing time freedom and financial freedom. God is with you in the leverage, just like he was with you in the wilderness. And I'd love that phrase in thinking you are building a machine for dominion, kingdom building, and you're helping others build a machine too, either right alongside you or just encouraging them in their thing. So back to my wife and I trying to choose what car to buy. And thank you for joining us in this process and helping me talk this out. I'm a verbal processor, so this is really helping me talking with you today about this. But whether we choose the Highlander because it mathematically aligns with the current foundation, or we choose the Lexus because we're stretching our capacity to match our future identity and actually believing that we're already standing in it, the point is we're going to make the choice in faith and not fear. And the other thing is, because God is a loving Father, he isn't looking at a flawless spreadsheet. He's looking at a faithful steward. And he's asking, can I still trust you to partner with me? And can you let me love on you? That's another thing you might need to hear right now. It may not be you've got to dig up some faith and figure some stuff out. It may be you hearing from the Lord himself, can I just love on you? Can I just bless you and it not be a thing? Can I just bless you? Deuteronomy 8:18 says, but remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you the ability to produce wealth. He's given you that ability. But paralysis by analysis, something that stops a lot of people. But it's really just fear wearing a mask sometimes of spirituality. It's time to trust God, the architect, make the choice, and execute the build, whatever it is in your life right now. I want you to stop this podcast when it ends and ask God, is there a place that I'm failing to upgrade my faith and invest and leverage? And I've been burying it in the dirt. But we're going to go take the risk and we're going to do this together. I trust, God, that you're in it with me. But if you've been stuck in a holding pattern, terrified of making the wrong move because you're waiting for a magic wand instead of trusting that God is already in your next step, it is time for a site inspection. You can go to purposedrivenbuilder.com. Right now, you can take my 60-second builder inspection quiz. Let's find the cracks, clear the fear, and get back to work. You've been listening to The Jesse Wood Show with yours truly, Jesse Wood. Let's build together.